Welcome to Metcalf Money Moment, the podcast. Unlock financial clarity and confidence with expert insights to achieve your goals. Hosted by Jeb Graham, Ethan Hutchison, and Eric Wymore. Each episode offers decades of combined expertise in wealth management, retirement planning, and more. Join us for practical strategies to inspire your financial journey. Now your hosts.
Welcome to Metcalf Money Moment, the podcast. My name is Jeb Graham, here with Eric Wymore and Ethan Hutchison, who are partners and co-hosts of the podcast. How you guys doing today?
Doing good. Yeah, doing well. Thanks.
Doing good. Middle of summer. It's hot out there. We got a little bit of rain this morning, which is good.
Absolutely.
And we needed it. I know my yard was looking a little bit brown for the first time of the year so far. So,
yeah.
Well, hey, today what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about a subject that a lot of people are very interested in these days, which is Social Security. So as financial advisors, pretty much every single one of our clients at some point start to try to figure out how and when to take Social Security. It's obviously a huge piece of the U.S. economy and how people in this country retire. To give you a couple stats, 67 million Americans will receive a Social Security benefit in 2025. So you think about retirees, baby boomers, it's a lot of people out there. And then another interesting statistic is that people that are leading up to taking Social Security, 1 in 3 Americans say that they're confused about when to claim their Social Security benefit and how to claim their Social Security benefit, according to a Nationwide Retirement Institute survey in 2023. So, obviously Social Security is just a huge, huge piece of the U.S. retirement puzzle. And they say that for 40% of retirees, that Social Security can make up more than half of their total income. And when the system was designed, Social Security was actually designed to replace about 40% of a retirees' income that they had during their working years. So, obviously when we have clients come in, either they're young and they're going to have to face it someday, or they're coming in right around that retirement time, and it's time to kind of start talking about it. So today, we're going to go through several different things. First off, Ethan's going to take us through kind of what is Social Security and how does it work? And then Eric's going to take us through some of the rules of Social Security. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about, when you should claim benefits and how to decide when to claim benefits. So Ethan, let's talk about what it is and how it works.
So but what is Social Security? A federal program providing retirement, disability, and survivor benefits to the beneficiaries of the program. So everyone knows about Social Security. You've heard about it. It's part of a government program that you pay into. So we'll kind of dive in a little bit deeper today and kind of uncover what it actually is. So the biggest question there's a ton of questions around it, but one that we usually get asked is how is it funded? How does this money get into the Social Security system? So when you get paid by your employer, whether you're a W-2 employee, or self-employed, some form of your paycheck goes to the Social Security program. If you're a W-2 employee, 6.2% of your pay goes to Social Security, and then 6.2% the employer also pays into the program, a combined 12.4%. The lovely part about being self-employed is you now front the entire 12.4%. So 12.4% of your pay, if you're self-employed, goes into the Social Security system. It goes into a trust fund. And Jeb made a good point about the trust fund itself earlier when we were having a discussion around this. It's not this massive fund that's invested, that spits off dividends, and it's just this huge endowment like all these big institutions have. It's essentially kind of like an escrow account. Money goes in that you pay, and then money comes out and gets paid directly to the beneficiaries that are on Social Security that have filed and paid into the program. So a lot of people think there's just trillions of dollars sitting in this thing. And while it is healthily funded, I'm not sure if that's a word, it's funded healthy, it's not this massive pool of money that's just sitting there. A big concern we get is, so people around my age in their 30s and 40s are really concerned that Social Security is not going to be there when they go to retire. They think, hey, I'm paying into this thing mandatory every time I get paid. My benefit's not even going to be there. Why do I continue to do this? Well, There's some nuances and some things that we can do from a government perspective that can solve that issue. So as it stands today, the trust fund's projected to be depleted in the early 2030s. It's 2025, so that's right around the corner. That's one or two presidents away that Social Security could be depleted. After that, benefits may be reduced. So it wouldn't entirely go away, but you might get about 77% of what you would have gotten if it would have been fully funded. There's a lot of little fixes that can occur. So right now, if you make up to $176,000, that FICA tax that we discussed earlier, the 6.2%, you pay into that up to $176,000. If you make $250,000 a year, from $176,000 up to $250,000, you no longer pay into Social Security. So that's called the wage base. And there are a lot of talks in Congress and a lot of legislature being passed to try to adjust that a little bit. And if we can maybe take that wage base from 176 up to 200 or to 225, that'll just further secure Social Security for the next decade or 2 decades. So little nuances there. And if you're making 250, you should be okay paying just a little bit extra in Social Security tax up to your wage base to help fund that.
And I'll say that too, is that I think for, just in general, by the way, and Eric, I don't know if you remember, but we used to, back in like 2013 and 14, we used to go give, up at UMKC, we used to give presentations on Social Security. And there were people that were worried back then about this. So this has been kind of something that people have known about forever. And I do feel like there is a problem, there is a shortfall. And if you think about it, it's because you've got all these baby boomers, right, that are retiring and they're collecting benefits and the workforce is smaller. So now there's just more people taken out of the system and less people to pay into the system for that kind of flow through escrow trust that you were talking about. And people have been worried about this for a very long time. I do believe, although there is a problem, it has been sensationalized a little bit as far as, I think people are worried that they're just going to eliminate Social Security or they're going to cut benefits. And obviously, like some of those stats we gave in the beginning that, think how many people are pulling Social Security and how many people are so dependent on it. It would be political suicide, to just get rid of the program, or I'd say even to cut benefits. So you talked about the wage base. They can raise the wage base. They could also just raise FICA taxes, right?
Yeah.
They could raise FICA taxes 1% or 2%. There's several different things that they could do to fix that problem. And I think that I'm leaning toward the fact that betting on that's what they'll do as opposed to eliminating any sort of anybody's benefits.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, because you have the largest demographic, that's baby boomers, and the second largest demographic is millennials, and now they're all into the workforce. They're all starting to kick in. Every one of them is into the workforce, and there's another demographic, another generation that's coming into the workforce. And the last time it made a major change was 1984. That's when they extended some of the full retirement ages and all that stuff, and that lasted 50 years. So I think it's certainly precedents to show that we will make some kind of a change to extend the benefits in the future. But
it doesn't do anybody any good to have a bunch of retirees that are bankrupt, right? And so I just don't think they're going to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. And so, well, let's talk a little bit about the rules or the kind of the basics of Social Security and the Social Security program. And in order to be eligible, an individual must have 40 credits, which usually takes 10 years to accumulate those 40 credits. How you accumulate a credit is for every, and this is in 2025 dollars, every $1,800 or so that you earn, you achieve 1 credit. So you are only eligible to earn 4 credits in a year. That's where usually a lot of times people say it's 40 quarters. Well, it's 40 credits, and you can earn 4 of them per year. But for every $1,800, you earn a credit. So for once you hit $7,240 in a year, you've earned your 4 credits for that year. So most individuals, if you have a full-time job, I would say that most individuals have their 4 credits for the year, by the first, by the end of the first quarter of that calendar year. So then when can you claim? For this particular exercise, you can claim any time between age 62 is your first eligibility, when you're first eligible, up until age 70, when you must claim because there's no more benefit to you. Right smack dab in the middle of those ages is your full retirement age. For one of the changes in 1984 is they kind of added some different full retirement ages. But if you were born in 1958, your full retirement age is 66 and 8 months, so it's coming up. 1959, your full retirement age is 66 and 10 months. And anyone over born in 1960 or older, your full retirement age is age 70. Now again, that's when you're at your full benefit amount. And Jeb, you're going to touch on this a little bit later, but if you draw your Social Security before that, you're going to have a reduced amount. If you draw it after that, you're going to have a little added benefit. So we'll save some of those numbers for your part. But and again, how are those benefits calculated? Well, it takes your highest 35 years of earnings. So as Ethan mentioned earlier, you have earnings. That 6.2 goes from you, 6.2 from the employer goes into that fund. You have those earnings tax, and all up to your income up to $176,000 goes into that trust fund, and it calculates those 35 highest years. So for most individuals, those last 5, 10, 15 years of earnings are generally their highest earnings. And what you're doing is you're replacing. It's important to work all the way through until you start drawing Social Security, generally speaking. But what you're doing is you're replacing those years when you're in your 20s and 30s and just kind of starting off and having a lower income. So it is important to kind of generate those higher dollars towards that get calculated towards your retirement benefit. And then also another thing that happens for your benefit is every year there's a cost of living adjustment, and that's spit out by the Social Security Administration. Figure out what costs. I think a few years ago when inflation was pretty high, most individuals got a 7, 8, 9% cost of living adjustment to their Social Security. Now that inflation has come down, you're back to kind of your normal 2.5%, 3% roughly cost of living adjustments, it's a good benefit for individuals to have. Couple more things. There is also what's called a spousal benefit. So if your spouse, let's say that individual stayed home, was a stay-at-home mother, stay-at-home father, was out of the workforce for a number of years, and then maybe got back in later, and their benefit it's a benefit, but it's not quite up to 50% of their spouse's. Well, they can draw, once their spouse draws on their benefit, the spouse can take up to 50, or can draw their benefit up to make sure that their benefit amount is at least 50% of their spouse's. So an example is if John Doe has a $3,000 a month benefit and Jane Doe's is only $1,000 a month, well, this spousal benefit will allow for her benefit to be bumped up $500 to equal 50% of John Doe's benefit. It's an enormous benefit, and everybody should be taking advantage if they don't quite meet that 50% barrier. So,
yep.
And I'm going to touch a little bit on taxes. That's a big thing. People will say, all right, well, or it's a little bit of a surprise. They start drawing Social Security, and it could be taxable, right? It could be taxable income, and I think usually a lot of the things is they hear the terms 50% and 85% taxable. Doesn't mean that 50% of your Social Security benefit is taxed at a 50% rate. It just means that 50% of your benefit could go into your taxable income. Same with 85%. So there are some numbers that you want to make sure, that you're just aware of if you have other income, retirement income, part-time job income, that it could affect your taxability on your Social Security.
For sure.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's always something to know. And by the way, that's one kind of shameless plug there on Holistiplan, right? Like when we're working with a client, we use Holistiplan, which is our tax planning software. That'll help us determine, that's one of the things we'll use to help determine, when to take Social Security, as well as just make sure kind of what your tax liability is going to be. Like when you're when you're going to be paying your quarterly taxes and things like that. So, so let's talk about when to claim benefits. And this is something that we work through with clients constantly. And it's, it's unique for every single client, but first and foremost, let's talk about, kind of what the cost of taking it early versus late and stuff like that is. Eric mentioned a minute ago that basically the earliest you can take a benefit is age 62. Okay. Well, there's no benefit of waiting till after age 70. So because basically your benefit's not going to grow anymore. So you're going to take it sometime between age 62 and 70. If you take it at age 62, you're going to get a permanent reduction of about 30% from what you would get at your full retirement age. Like Eric was saying, full retirement age for most people is between age 66 and 67. So if you take it early, that's, at age 62, that's a 30% reduction from full retirement age. Every year from age 62 on that you wait, you get an 8% increase. Okay. So meaning, if you take it at age 63, it's 8% more than it was at age 62, so on and so forth, all the way up to age 70. So what we get from clients a lot, and this is something that I think we want to clarify today on what our opinion of a break-even is versus what a lot of people's opinion of a break-even is as financial advisors. But people always talk about the break-even point of Social Security. And I think the blanket thing that people are saying when they mean that is when are you breaking even on the amount that you would take out of the Social Security system? Okay. Meaning if you took it at age 62 versus age 70, when would you break even on the amount that you've taken out of the Social Security system? Well, that number is a little bit different for each person, but typically it's going to be in your very late 70s or very early 80s. Okay. And what that means is, again, if you take it at 62, 65, 67, 70, whatever it is, you've taken the same amount out of the Social Security system. If you're taking kind of that approach to when you're going to take your benefit, if you think about it, if you have longevity in your family, then you may want to wait till age 70 to take that benefit. Or if you are not in good health, you might want to go ahead and take it at age 62, because really you're trying to figure out how much you're taking out of the system. And again, that break even is going to be around that age 80. Now, where we as financial advisors, what we're much more concerned about is how are we maximizing your portfolio value over time, and how are we maximizing the utility of Social Security. So a good example of that is we deal with this, I mean, you guys probably too, every month, right? Where you have somebody that's getting ready to retire and they're going to retire early and they want to know whether they should take it at 62, 67, or 70. And what we're going to do is a side-by-side comparison in eMoney, which is our financial planning software, which is a very, very sophisticated software. And we're going to show them a side-by-side of taking it at 62 versus taking it at 67 versus taking it at 70. And what a lot of people don't think about is if you're going to retire at age 62 and you're going to wait till 67, well, that's 5 years there that you're going to need to pull money out of your portfolio, right, in order to live, or more money than you're already pulling out of your portfolio, because you're not getting any Social Security benefit. So really, when we're talking about break even as financial advisors, we want to account for the extra money that you have to take out of your portfolio to live during that 5 years, and then figure out when the portfolio breaks even. So for instance, if you have to take an extra $150,000 out of your portfolio over that 5 years, well, then we need to know when your portfolio catches back up to that $150,000 that you took out. A lot of times that break even could be in your mid 90s, late 90s, or even over 100 years old. So many times when we have a client that's retiring early, if they've got $1 million or $2 million in their portfolio, or $3 million, our system will show that it's better to go ahead and take it early. Okay. However, there are a couple other factors in taking early Social Security. Number one is if you're getting health insurance, you need to make sure that a lot of times you have to stay under a certain income threshold to keep those health insurance premiums down. Doesn't mean that you don't want to take Social Security, but it does mean that we need to account for that in the plan and still see, what the numbers show and what's more beneficial. And then the other thing is we have a lot of people that do retire early and then they work part-time. Okay. If you're going to work part-time and make over, this year, the number is $23,400, you definitely don't want to take Social Security early. And the reason is because if you take it early, like we said earlier, you're permanently reducing that benefit. But then if you make more than $23,400 a year, you're actually going to further reduce that benefit. So you're kind of getting double whacked there, if that makes sense, because you're taking a smaller benefit and part of that benefit is getting eliminated. So I think just to kind of put all this in encompassing is that the most important thing is that it's unique for everybody, right? So whether you take it early, whether you wait till later, it's going to be unique for every individual. And I think it's very important to meet with a financial advisor and to put together a plan so that you can kind of see what those numbers look like long term. And to Eric's point earlier, where you have spousal benefits and spouses taking it at certain times, there's some things that a financial advisor might be able to point out to you, some strategies there that might increase, your overall financial health down the road as well. So.
And Jed, there's other little nuances too. If you're divorced and you've never gotten remarried and your ex-spouse has a higher wage base or income, you might be entitled to their Social Security when they turn 62. If you're widowed, there's survival benefits. There's a lot of little nuances that might not affect everybody, but they're available to everybody. So just to dovetail off Jed, have the conversation with your advisor.
That's a great point. Yeah. And by the way, in this podcast, we've probably touched on 10% of really the intricacies of Social Security, and we do go much more in depth, when we have a client in here. So
I think it's important too. I mean, if you're above the age of 40, go ahead and log in to ssa.gov, get a login established, print a PDF of your statement and send it to your advisor. So if you're listening to this call, I love it when I get those unsolicited Social Security statements. I'm like, hey, great. Thank you for the update. Cost of living adjustment hit your wages. We'll update your plan. So if you're thinking about it or listening to this, just do that today. It'd be great. Your planner would love it.
That's a great point. And for sure, like we talked about this earlier too, I think it's so important for them to print off a statement. Our system will estimate it. So when we do an e-money plan for somebody, it will estimate it based on their income. But we found a lot of times it's not quite as accurate as what somebody actually printing it off is. So it's great for us to have those. And we do have clients that actually print that off every year and send it to us, and we update it for them, and we love to do it. So, but anyway, this has been super productive. I think, half hour here talking about Social Security. If you have any other questions about Social Security, certainly give us a call, because we'd love to answer them, and it's something that we spend a fair amount of time studying up on and learning more and more about, because it's always changing. It's never stagnant. They're always kind of updating rules and things like that. So, but this is Metcalf Money Moment Podcast, and we're signing off.
Thanks for tuning in to Metcalf Money Moment, the podcast. We hope today's episode provided valuable insights to help you unlock financial clarity, confidence, and peace of mind. For more expert advice and resources, visit metcalfpartners.com. Until next time, make every money moment count.
Jeb Graham, Ethan Hutchison, and Eric Wymore are registered representatives with and securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through WCG Wealth Advisors, a registered investment advisor. WCG Wealth Advisors and Metcalf Partners Wealth Management are separate entities from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly.